Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing Chapter 6 for The Dark. Nuestra Colony. The year is 2462. The Med Center. Ian. The only people I know on this whole rock are the people who've come to visit Rias. Rafaela, the tattoo artist with green hair. Gutierrez, the best friend and pilot. Doc, of course, he works here. Elias, the cute orderly, I wonder if he's single. Emilio, the city administrator. Carla, who I guess is the colony mom, and her daughter Val. Mr. Gunther, the Bentley Thwaite Corporation representative. Dalila, Rias' little sister, and his uncle Marcial. His aunt never came to see him. Today, someone new came by. A tall man about the same age as Rias, unshaven, with deep, brooding eyes. "Hey," he said as he entered. "You're one of the survivors?" "I am. Ian Alvarado. I was the pilot of the Adi Shachar, and Rias kept me alive until the others came," I said. "Manuel Vargas. We broke up a month before his father died." "How is he?" Manuel said. "In a place as small as Nuestra, you can never escape your ex." Keeping it short, I told him the basics. I'm surprised he hadn't heard. Or maybe he was simply making conversation. We had a lot of fun once, but it only took a few months of living with him to know I could never live with him. The funny thing, I still love him, Manuel said, sat on the rolling stool, and scooted it beside Rias. "Hey, came to make sure you're okay." Rias opened his eyes. "I was worried. Some of the stories going around are pretty gruesome. I guess I had to see for myself." "He can't talk yet," I said. "Why don't you tell him what you heard? He might like that." "Let's see. One story has you dying and your skin's falling off. Another has you crawling through the reactor to reach the bridge. Another one is that you disassembled the entire airlock in 5 minutes to get inside." Manuel said. "That one's true. It's how he saved Captain and then found me. What else did he do?" I asked. Pushing a small silver cart, Doc walked in. I ignored Manuel's one-sided conversation and focused on what the cart carried. A very utilitarian, industrial prosthetic arm. No clear skin. It barely even resembled an arm. Instead of a hand, it had a 3-pronged claw. Open on the sides, it revealed gears and servos, all neatly lined up. In a word, clunky. The emergency medical transport not only brought Rias' new treatments, but also your new prosthetic, Doc said. Ugly was the first word that came to mind. My career was over. No way would that thing have the sensitivity to handle a ship. Maybe I could do cargo lifting or repair work, but not piloting. Doc must have seen the look on my face. "It's only temporary. We need to keep the nerves in your shoulder active because if they atrophy, you'll have a harder time." "But Doc, that?" I said. "Don't worry. Once the shoulder collar is installed, your arm is interchangeable. You'll take it off every night to recharge it, and when it wears out, you'll get a new one. Rias, your dad had 4 arms over the last decade, wasn't it?" Rias raised 3 fingers. "3 arms. My mistake," Doc said. "Rias," Manuel said, rising from the stool, "you never change. Once something technological enters the room, that's all you can think about. I'm glad you're awake." Rias nodded. "I know we're no longer together, but if you need anything, give me a call," Manuel said. After Manuel left, Doc held the arm to my side and took measurements with his data pad. Attaching your first arm is a 3-stage process. First, we keep the nerves active, which is the small box on your shoulder. Then, once you've healed enough, we attach the collar. When that's ready, we test it with the arm. Rias sat up in bed, swung his legs over the side, and held his data pad up. He was careful of the nanocuff and blood cuff to keep their tubes from crossing. "Tomorrow, I've scheduled you for surgery and will attach the collar," Doc said, and removed the small box from my shoulder and eased the bandages off. A little seepage, but I was expecting that. Elias, can you come here? The cute orderly came in. Yes, Doc? Well, Doc gave Elias instructions. Rias kept doing things with his data pad. He would look at me, hold up the data pad, then look at the prosthetic, and then hold up his data pad. As he used the bunk to support him, he stood, reached for the cart, and almost fell back onto the bunk. He was too weak. Elias shoved the cart a little, and it rolled to Rias. Again, Rias worked with his data pad. Rias, no. Give it a rest, Doc said, frowning. With a shrug, Rias picked up the arm and looked at the servos. He pointed at one in particular. With a sigh, he shook his head, and then he pointed at one near the elbow. It's just a temporary. I want you laying down and sleeping, Doc said. Good luck with that, Elias muttered. What's Rias doing? I said. Doc gave a small chuckle. Rias is being Rias. He's critiquing the arm. Yes, I know it's a little long. Yes, I know there are better servos. Yes, 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 to everything else. Now lie down and let me do my job. The arm looks brand new to me. Besides the shape, it's ugly, and the odd hand. What's wrong with it? I asked. According to Rias, everything. Elias, go get the model from my desk, Doc said. Rias glared at Doc, but his body drooped. Sorry, get the replica from my desk, Doc said. Rias set the arm down on the cart, carefully laid down in his bunk, and within a minute he closed his eyes. What's the difference? I asked. Models are for kids, Doc said. Elias returned with a replica of an emergency medical courier. It was the size of my forearm and very detailed. This is what Rias would call a replica. He was 13 or 14 when he made that. You should see what he builds now. After his dad died, nobody saw Rias for weeks. He hid himself somewhere and built the Venganza de Dios, and it's on display in the CNC. His models and replicas are all over the place. He's made 90, I think. He repairs everything as well, Doc said, picked up the arm and wiggled the claw. It's what he does around Nuestra, and it's gotten him in some trouble a few times. Oh? I said. I took the replica of the courier, carefully looking it over. Except for a couple of odd weld marks, it was perfect. And heavy. It was made out of custom-cut metal pieces that fit together like a puzzle. Perlita has never forgiven him for fixing her busted curling iron. He fixed it so good, it burned her scalp and fried her hair. Then he fixed it again, but it didn't get hot enough for her liking, so he fixed it again, and again. Perlita never used it and gave it to Carla, and Carla swears by it, Doc said. He has a system he uses, and with it he can pull anything apart, fix it, and put it back together, Elias said. I picked up the arm again and compared it to the courier. The courier was better made, heavier, and had a button on the bottom. I pressed it. The courier lit up. Once he figured out the electronic system, he's wired everything he's built ever since, Elias said. Medical Center, Nuestra, Rias. I pretended to sleep while the others talked. Perlita never let me forget my mistakes 9 years ago, nor did Marcial. When something broke in the mines, I got blamed. Usually, they just wore out, but I fixed them anyway. Too much had happened for me to sleep. The crash, a lethal dose of radiation, dying marrow. Evidently, I died twice. I had too much to think about. 2 weeks of my life were gone. And raiders were in the system. What did we have to steal? A crate full of churros? Fresh tomatoes? While I waited for Doc to finish, I sent a text to Gutierrez. He would join me after his shift was over. Gutierrez knew electronics better than me, and for what I was contemplating, I would need some help. Without my tools and markers, I would have to design everything in my head. Doc would not like what I was about to do. That's one of my faults. I see something that needs to be done, and I do it. I've made a lot of people angry because I jump in, finish a project, and move on to the next. I step on a lot of toes in the process. At the mines, everybody knew to leave things on the tables, and I would fix them. Not here. My dad understood me and never disturbed me or my projects. I pictured the entire project in my head, aligning and realigning parts, adjusting lengths. Finally, Doc and Elias left, and Ian went to sleep. I slipped out of bed, eased myself onto the floor. I got guacamole, fresh water, and a handful of cat pellets and placed the arm in my lap. This wasn't an arm. It was more like the robotic tools they used in manufacturing. No hand, no style, not even warm. With my datapad, I recorded everything in my head onto the screen. Screens are fine, but I need something I can feel, manipulate, scribble with. Markers would do. Gutierrez finally appeared with my dad's old arm, my tools, and my markers. "You look terrible. Are you sure you're up for this?" I shook my head. A quick text. I need to think. "Karina kicked me out of the apartment for the night. I might as well spend it here," Gutierrez said, and set my dad's old arm on the bunk. He traded Ian's prosthetic for the markers. Karina was his wife, and she was 7 months pregnant and not loving life. A week ago, she complained that Gutierrez chewed funny, or snored too loud, or he didn't make enough noise when he was around, so she felt lonely. For the last month, she craved coconut ice cream, and he had to get it at any time from the food courts, day or night. People are hard to understand. With the markers, I was in my element. Quickly sketching my ideas on the floor, I shifted to diagram the elbow assembly. I don't like the way the wires bind. Look. Gutierrez held the prosthetic down so I could see. It needed a streamlined configuration. The assembly might work on an open assembly like this, but add nanogel muscle fibers and I could see the problem. With another sketch, I redesigned the unit. Gutierrez leaned in. Maybe. But check the weight compared to your dad's. It's heavier. He was right. The utilitarian prosthetic was heavier, which meant the nanites would have to modify Ian's skeletal structure to handle the extra weight. However, the cart was made of shiny silver metal, lightweight, and rust-proof. Stainless steel or something similar. Doc would be upset with me. I'll have to remember to ask him this time before I cut holes in it, then make him a new cart later. It was time to begin. I already knew the pieces I needed cut and what parts to replace. One problem. Well, many problems, but one main one. I couldn't go to salvage to get what I needed. I looked at Gutierrez and pointed at the cart. "Make me a list. I'll see what I can find," he sighed. "I'm glad you're awake." Medical Center, Nuestra Colony. Ian. Once I escaped the dream of the crash, I have had it every day and night since I woke. I was greeted by dimmed lights, and Rias slumped against the side of his bunk. My new arm was partially disassembled to his right. Another arm was disassembled to his left. Doc's shiny cart had marker lines all over it, as did the floor. Diagrams of the arm and its joints radiated out from Rias, and row after row after row of parts. Leaning against the base of his bunk were sheets of different types of metal. None of that bothered me. What did was stubble-headed Rias, unconscious, looking small and vulnerable, his tubes stretched out from the bunk to their limit. He only wore the blanket. The guy had so many sensor pads and tubes and wires coming from every part of his body that a medical jumpsuit would never fit over it. He was like a fly caught in the center of a web of tubes and parts. Guacamole walked through the maze, not disturbing anything, and right up to the food dish. Full. Rias must have filled it. As I got out of my bunk, I tiptoed my way through the parts and out of the curtain. Doc sat at a desk, studying his datapad. "Did he finally fall asleep?" "He did," I said. "Now you see why people can get so annoyed with him sometimes," Doc said, and rubbed the bridge of his nose with thumb and forefinger. "As long as nothing is disturbed, Rias can put both arms back together, although I believe he is combining them. I think he's already got it planned out. When I took measurements, he took measurements, and I wouldn't be surprised if his are more accurate. You mean he's building an arm? My arm. He's come out of a coma, and he's building an arm, I said. Doc set the datapad down and sighed. Rias doesn't think like you or me, and he doesn't process life the same either, or grief. The bigger the event, the bigger the build. He has to accept the fact that he died. And even with the artificial blood and nanites doing the work of his marrow, his body is only days from a complete shutdown. The treatments are the only thing keeping him alive. So, what does he do? He designs a work of art. When it works, you'll have one amazing piece of custom machinery, and he'll have dealt with his emotions. When? I asked. He doesn't always get it right on the first try, but I don't know if he has it in him for a second try right now, Doc said. So he's dying? I said. Let's simply say he's somewhere between stable and critical and could relapse at any time, Doc said. Although I left Doc to his work, I don't think his mind strayed too far from Rias. Mine neither. Rias hadn't moved, but Guacamole was back on the pillow. Nobody had ever died for me, or saved me while he knowingly sacrificed his own life. It would take years for Rias to recover, if he ever did. What had he given up to save Captain Rohan, Guacamole, and me? As careful as I could, I made my way through the parts to his side and picked him up. We were the same height, but he was lighter than I expected, and colder. It could have been the floor that chilled him, but I didn't think it was. I placed him next to Guacamole and covered him up with the blanket. His face was so pale. It was the same face that looked in through the broken viewport and gave me hope. It was the face of the man who kept me breathing. It was the most beautiful face I had ever seen. I'd probably say that about anybody who rescued me. But this man had died for me. Look at him now, broken, damaged, dying. Rias knew the danger and had gone anyway, and had saved the three of us. That humbled me. I was just an ordinary pilot, not a captain, or anybody even remotely important, and he had been there to help me. I touched the CSM around his neck. "Bring him home," I whispered. With one of his markers, I made a little note by the arm design. "You need a footpath. Ian." I left the marker by the note, as if underlying it. One beer, and I would be able to think. MRD-1, Mining Research and Development System 1. The first one. There's more now, but it was the start. Later came its colony, Nuestra, or Nuestra Madre del Santo Sangre de la Cruz Mining Colony, as it's called on official documents. It's one of the gems of the outer colonies. Every time I came here, I marveled that people could turn so desolate a place into a paradise. There's trees everywhere, and all kinds of plants hang from every level of every building. Somehow, they've trained the tomatoes to grow vertically and down. Window boxes filled with flowers and herbs are everywhere. I know on some level that all of this is part of their massive recycling and purification system. But every time I've been here, I found some new plant or food or wonder. Nuestra is lined up with their own compass. 5 domes. North Dome was the first built and is for habitation. Central Dome is in the middle and houses the shops, administration, and CNC. South Dome is the newest, also for habitation, but it also houses medical. West Dome is for manufacturing and ore processing, and East Dome is for hydroponics. Just outside of East Dome is their spaceport. In reality, it's a huge rectangular building that connected to the cargo haulers when they land. It's all connected by a double-layer tram system that goes under the domes, then above the surface and to the next dome. It's one giant loop. If you ride it long enough, you'll end up back where you started. Gallagher told me once that the local custom is to see how long you can ride it before security kicks you off. The record? 3 hours. With only the cargo hauler, Orion's Belt, serving Campbell Station, Nuestra, SRK-12, and Taylor Station, Shipments will slow down. Most of the ships fly closer to Terra, where the lucrative trade routes are. A few of us prefer life out this far. My folks are on one of the routes closer to Terra, but I wanted to be out among the stars. So I'm here, in a garden paradise that no one on Earth knows exists. After leaving medical, I wandered to the food courts and bars, sat in the South Dome food courts, and finally ordered a beer. If I were a raider, I'd definitely go after the beer. The locals called this time night mode, when all the lights were dimmed enough to make it romantic. Captain and Carruthers would wander through the domes at this time of night, finding a bench somewhere and staring out of the domes at the craggy, barren landscape. Outside the domes, it's just dark. Shadows lie as far as you can see. Inside, the colonists have worked miracles. Somewhere out there is the Adi Shachar, broken, dead, a waste of a good ship. That would have been me had it not been for Rias. Now he was broken and near dead. How am I supposed to feel when someone sacrificed everything so I could live? As I stared at the dark beer, part of me remembered the horror of being trapped on the bridge. Nobody will understand, but I owe Rias a debt that I must somehow repay. I can't leave him like he is now. Somehow I have to help him survive, as he helped me. When I closed my eyes, I still saw him on the broken viewport, sealing the oxygen in and saving my life. I contrasted that man with a skeletal shell lying in the med center. With all the artificial blood Doc pumped in him, I wonder if Rias has any of his own left. No matter how I looked at it, I owed Rias for my life and everything else. Thank you for joining me, everybody. We'll see you next time. Peace.